Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us at our first candidate forum for this election cycle. Our second session will be this Saturday, October the 14th at 10:30 at Covenant Village. I am Juliette Abdel, the President and CEO for the Westminster Chamber of Commerce. We are one of the youngest and fastest growing business organizations in the Front Range, hosting these forums to educate not just our business community, but our residents about the candidates that are running so you make informed decisions at the poll in November. This morning, we'll have a few minutes to hear from our mayoral candidates, break, and then continue with our city councilors. The way this forum runs is that we will start with a 1-minute intro from each of the candidates, move into the questions that were pre-submitted to us by email and by text. Each candidate will have 30 seconds to answer the questions that are asked. They will answer each question individually. If you have additional questions, please feel free to grab a question card from the back with a pen. If we do not get to your question, we will carry it over to the Saturday session. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll introduce our panel. We have our Honorable Mayor Herb Addison, Honorable Councilor Bruce Baker, and our mayoral candidate Rich Seymour. I'll start with Mayor Addison.
Thank you. Again, my name is Herb Addison. I am the mayor of the city of Westminster, and thank you for coming out this morning. Over the last 4 years, we have had the issue of how do we maintain what's going to be our future? The sustainability of the city has been dependent upon investments in the city. So far, over the last 4 years, we've had $750 million invested in our city. That money goes to help finance parks, recreational facilities, our police and fire department, and our city overall. But it also helps us in the area of education. So one of the things we want to continue to do is to work with our school districts and find opportunities for kids to be educated that aren't going to go to the four-year colleges. I ask you to continue to help me with the city and to support me over the next 4 years.
Thank you.
Next, that would be me, Bruce Baker. It's a wonderful day today, and as I drove in and the sky was blue and all the sunshine was glistening off the frost that had formed, I thought to myself, this is an excellent day to remind everybody of the meaning of elections. And elections are where the people who own this country and run this country, and in our case, this city, get to hold people accountable, get to have their choice made known. And in this mayor's race, you're going to have a nice, wonderful choice to make. And it's not going to be about platitudes, because as most of you know, I like details, because the devil is in the details, and how we do the details makes all the difference in the world. And so I earnestly hope we talk about specifics and details and not about generalities. Ms. Red, done?
Yes, thank you. Rich?
Good morning. I am Rich Seymour. I am the newcomer platform, thus I have to learn how to use the buttons also. But we'll pick up that disadvantage later. It is an advantage to not be behind this platform because as a local business owner, community leader, youth development person, I have spent the last 26 years in Westminster deeply involved in our community and in our small businesses. I have a unique perspective that I can bring to this podium as mayor. And I believe that that's a critical new perspective. And I think it's something that we're going to chat about over the next couple days, weeks, and before November the 7th, I hope you make a decision to vote for me, Rich Seymour. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and get started with our first question, and I'll start with Mayor Addison and kind of move on. Our first question is that there are no crossing guards at 100th and Countryside, which poses a danger for younger kids going to school walking. What are your plans for safety for these kids?
Can you repeat the location?
Yes, there's no crossing guard at 100th and Countryside, which poses a danger for younger kids going to school walking. What are your plans for safety for these kids?
Well, if there's an unguarded crossing guard, I would be looking to the schools to help provide those. Now, we do provide school resource officers for the protection of our kids in the schools, but I have not heard anything particularly that we've had any complaints about that issue. So I would have to go back and look at the school district and talk with them and see what are they planning to do. I understand where it's at now, but I'm not sure that there's been anybody who's identified that as a problem until today.
Thank you. Councilor Baker?
As in what? 5 out of 6 things, I agree with the mayor on this one. Basically, the local people need to look out for themselves. We can't rely on the city, because if we did do that, then we'd end up playing favorites. Some people would get more than others. So we have to look to the school and the parents there first. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate Seymour?
I think we're all going to have to agree on this one, in that is a school issue. Our student resource officers, that is a particularly dangerous intersection because of the speeds on along 100th. That's just off the corner of my neighborhood. And we do have middle school kids and elementary school kids crossing there too. So it's something that maybe our resource officers can help coordinate with. As a former crossing guard at Lucas, I know that can be a hairy situation unto itself.
Thank you. This next question will start with you, Rich. Roads in Westminster already overflowing with traffic. Why does the city continue to allow multifamily housing to be built when our infrastructure is incapable of handling the current levels of traffic?
Great question. I think we have to look towards smart growth first. We need to fill in at retail locations wherever possible, because that is where our money comes for our future. And so our infrastructure, when we talk to citizens, this is one of their 1 and 2 concerns is infrastructure being overloaded currently and how we work with our neighbors to the north and south to fix bottlenecks.
Thank you. Councilor Baker, the same question.
We have a comprehensive plan for the city. We shouldn't change that plan unless there's overwhelming evidence to change it. Unfortunately, there's 4 instances that jump right to the front of my mind where we've jammed in thousands of more people, which we should not have done. Our first duty is the people who live here now. And if we jam in thousands more people, we'll just mess up our place.
Thank you.
I think both the comments are valid. The thing we have is a growth management plan as well as a comprehensive use plan. And both of those have to look at what also we have as property rights. People who own property have a right to develop them. But with every property, we also look at the mitigation that we have with our utility systems, our roadways, and we have to continue to do that and value what's there.
Thank you. We'll start with you, Mr. Addison, on this next question. Why is the city developing the new downtown when large retail buildings like the former Builder Square have been vacant for more than a decade?
Well, the Builder Square store you refer to is about to go away because we do have a plan for the redevelopment of that. But keep in mind, that store has been under lease to Home Depot ever since it first went dark, and that lease doesn't end until 2018. Development of the downtown is still part of a growth that we have to replace the tax base that was once the Westminster Mall. Without it, we don't have a good tax base for sustainability of the city moving forward.
Thank you. Councilor Baker?
That was a mistake to change the Builder Square store. Talk about jamming in thousands of people. We're going to jam in hundreds of people there. It's going to overload the systems, not only the roadways, but like the park system that does everything else like that. We'll get into the new downtown later, I'm sure. Unfortunately, it is now our legacy, but that was a mistake too.
Thank you. Mr. Seymour?
Specifically on the Builder Square area, it's part of a smart growth as a small business owner. I hear from people all the time, how come we don't have locally owned restaurants in this spot, or why can't we get something at this corner? There is a certain level of product density that a business, especially a small business that can't rely on franchise money, needs to have that kind of growth. The Builder Square incidents, I pass that every day. I think we have a good plan in place for that moving forward.
Thank you. This next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Seymour. What is the idea behind retail development when there are so many vacant retail spaces?
Well, I'll have to leave that up to the current councilors and the mayor to answer that question, but I think you have to have an adequate density of a population in an area, and businesses have to be willing to invest in that area, and that is not particularly up to government to do.
Thank you.
We're making a mistake in retail, and the leaders of this city, which are the council and mayor, need to examine this more. When you look at all of the forms flowing into it, whether it's the demographics of a neighborhood and how we have less number per household, or whether it's the online sellers, and we've not looked at that. We think, oh, we'll just put retail everywhere, and that's not going to work because we haven't done it in a thoughtful manner.
Thank you.
I think one of the things you have to look at is we have big box stores that went through their cycle, and we have a number of those that are still vacant today. Right at 92nd and Sheridan is a good example. Those are all privately owned. And as much as we have tried to direct people over to look at those, the size of the building is a detriment in many cases to having someone go in and look at those. But we still have to look at where can we put small business. Small business can't rent a 50,000 square foot store.
Thank you. We'll get started with you on this next question. Do you support the vision of the city management of Westminster to become the next urban center on the Front Range? If so, how will we get there?
Yes, I do, because we're the part of the group that made it happen. And how do we get there is continue to look at development opportunities for our business opportunities for both small and large business, and looking at how we can entice people to put quality product here. That's first and foremost. But we have a generation that wants to be near activities. They don't want to have to get in cars to drive. And because of that, we also have to look at the seniors who are wanting to downsize.
Thank you.
Our doing the new downtown, in my view, was a mistake. I advocated against it. Today, it's our inheritance. The first thing, though, we have to do is we have to stop being so arrogant about it that we're the greatest city planners in the world. We're not. And the deals that have been done there are terrible. We've been favorites. We've played favorites. I mean, wouldn't every retail store in Westminster want a deal where they got to keep 100% of the sales tax they collect in our name for 3 years?
Thank you. Mr. Seymour?
Since we're back on the former mall site, we'll continue with that thought. We can have every vision that we want in the world, but the people who are going to build these locations there and are going to decide what the mix is like. Obviously, we have not come up with a mix that they've liked, and we've been through 3 large development groups and then back and forth to the council twice now. So continuing along that path won't help with our retail development or urbanization.
This next question will start with you, Mr. Seymour. What are some things the city can do to improve the affordable housing shortage?
I believe affordable housing is a play of the market. We currently do not have sufficient housing units throughout the entire Front Range of Colorado. Affordability is based on market presence and volume. If we do not have enough volume of homes, the price will continue to rise. It's not the function of the government to set that market.
Thank you.
For those of us who've lived in Colorado a long time, or for those who look at history, Colorado always goes through boom and busts. That's why we have ghost towns in the mountains. And Rich is absolutely correct. This is the dark side of the free market. And while we can do some things around the edges, which we've done, and then we've done some foolish things which are going to go away. We've paid lots of money, and it'll go away.
Thank you.
I think we have done a lot for workforce housing. Right now, under contract here in the city, we have over 400 units of workforce housing already to be built, and we'll continue to get more. The thing that we want to make sure is that workforce housing is available throughout the entire city, not in one location. And 28% of the housing units that are already under contract for the downtown area are workforce housing. But we will never fix it, as the other two have said, until we fix the economy and housing litigation.
Thank you. If elected to mayor, would you oppose or encourage the continued expansion of the B line into northern Westminster?
Absolutely. We're already in discussions with RTD, but as many of you may have seen, RTD has got a lot of other problems in getting the A line, the B line, the G line, and the N line finished for construction. But the next segment of the B line from 71st and Irving to 88th and Harlan is over a $300 million project. RTD does not have the funds to put into the capital construction today. They're over $300 million in the hole for their 2023 budget.
For me, this goes back to arrogance again. And I think in 2004, when we voted this in, we listened to the dream. And now that we've seen the reality of what it is, it's not working. The sad irony is the G line, which goes to Arvada, which isn't working right now, is actually saving RTD money, because every line we operate, fares only pay 25% of the fare.
Thank you.
I would be in favor of it if the market drives it. If ridership up to the current station exceeds the numbers that we currently have by a substantial amount, and it can pay its way, or we can get a private company to pay for that section, and the ridership is there, then that's how you create that need. It's back to us not creating a market that's not there already.
We'll get started with you, Mr. Seymour, on this question. The City of Golden has placed an initiative on their November ballot for approval to lease 15 acres of land from Jefferson County for the purpose of erecting a community solar garden. In your opinion, what are the pros and cons of a community solar garden for Westminster? Should an initiative for erection of a community solar garden be considered for a ballot in 2019?
The direct answer to that is no. I think if someone wants to put themselves off the grid, use solar either through a purchase or a lease option, all that are available right now for their own home, that's a homeowner's choice. I think that's a great way to do that, and every place that my business is at, there's a Solar City tent right next door to it. And I think that there are plenty of public options for that so that we can save the land that we have here in Westminster.
Thank you.
Really, no, I would not, and I think it's foolish of Golden to do it on leased land. If they did it on their own land, well, that's a choice they can make, but to do it on leased land and involve other people is crazy. And for us to do it, it's not one of our core functions.
Thank you. You ready for the questions to be repeated
Sorry,
again?
That's fine. In regard to what Golden's doing, I don't know what the details of why they're doing it, and why would they, as the others have indicated, why would they go out and lease land to put up a solar garden? So the details behind it, I'm not aware of. Whether or not we would consider it, we might discuss it, we might consider it, but without more details of what the cost would be and the benefits would be, I wouldn't know what to tell you whether it's supported or not.
Thank you. This question will get started with you, Mr. Addison. What programs and policies would you work to enact to make Westminster more sustainable?
I think we have to look at what we're doing today, as we've already done, with our comprehensive growth plan, our use plan, and looking along is where are we at with our infrastructure system. We have utility systems been in the ground for over 50 years. We have to continue to maintain those and move forward. But we have to have also a solid tax base to maintain this. At some point, we will reach build out. But that doesn't mean we stop living here.
Thank you.
That's a word that doesn't mean anything, sustainable. What the heck do you mean by that question and that word? It's been used to cover 100 different answers, and that's just wrong. So I'd want a definitive answer on what the questioner means by sustainable.
Thank you.
Well, I'll follow along with the mayor's line of thought. The most important thing for a city government to do is to be fiscally sustainable. That is the critical issue. That's why our comp plan is set up as it is. That's why our goal is to bring retail first here that will then drive and help our tax base. We also have to look to the future when retail will be more mobile. How can we collect those sales taxes for the future so we can be fiscally sustainable?
This next question will get started with you, Mr. Seymour. What major projects would you support or want to pursue if elected?
I think the number one project would be community outreach. We have to get out from behind this dais without a community town hall in front of us and tables of 10 people with detailed questions already prepared. I think we need to do what I do every day as a small business owner here in Westminster. You need to get out. We need to see the people. We need to do it as a council. We need to do it as an entire city.
Thank you.
I would want to look at our neighborhoods and what we can do to maintain and sustain our neighborhoods, because we have some wonderful neighborhoods here and we have some neighborhoods that are struggling. We've spent all our time on the fantasy of the new downtown and done a terrible job with that. We haven't sold anything there at retail. Everything has a huge subsidy. Well, if we're going to subsidize something, I'd rather subsidize my neighbors than some other person.
Thank you.
Repeat it, please, Jeanette.
Yes. What major project would you pursue or support if elected in office?
I want to continue our looking at the workforce housing, because we have to have a place for the people who live and work here. Our employees need to be able to find affordable housing. Our firefighters, our school teachers, the people who have to go wear the blue collar and go to work every day. There's still opportunity with working with developers and builders to build more workforce housing throughout our city. We're trying to do that now, and we're trying to institute the development of condos, which haven't been built in this metropolitan area for over 10 years.
Thank you. This next question will start with you. How do you think the city should support all of the school districts within its borders?
Yes, and we already do. I have been spending the last 4 years working with the school district trying to find avenues to bring kids to job opportunities, career technical education, and looking at those who will not go to the four-year colleges, who can't afford or don't have the grades. But we have to educate them to where they can find reasonable jobs. We have a good working relationship with all three school districts today. I know every superintendent and most every school board member on a personal basis.
Well, the first thing we can do to help our school district is not take their money from them. And we have intentionally done that with our urban renewal areas and our TIF way to take money. And I was just at a forum the other day, and people were shocked to learn how our new downtown is going to take money from the Jefferson County schools and secretly raise the taxes on property taxers. When it was a mall, it sent no kids to school.
I think communication outreach with our school districts is important when you have three major school districts as part of it. The city can help the communication between those districts, but as a city ourselves, our summer workforce, a lot of the kids come from the local high schools, and I think that in itself, the city in itself, jobs that already exist that are great for high schoolers are there already.
We'll get started with you, Mr. Seymour. How much money has been spent moving around the new mall or downtown area?
I haven't spent a dime. I'm not sure how much it costs the taxpayers, but the result is some roads that we'll talk about shortly, I would imagine.
Thank you.
We've spent in the neighborhood of $70 to $80 million on what we've done to the town at the new downtown, if you count the land of the acquisition and the parking garage and the road network and the sewers.
Thank you.
Same answer and Mr. Baker, between $70 and $75 million to put all the infrastructure in, plus the garage.
What do you think are the challenges our city faces as we continue to grow?
Well, I know Mr. Baker didn't like the definition of it, but it's making sure that we are able to sustain what we're building, our utility systems, our core services. Those are the issues that we have made a commitment to our residents that we're going to provide them: fire, water, sewer, power. We have to continue to do that to make sure that they're available to live in their own homes.
Thank you.
Juliette, I'd ask you to repeat the question, please.
Yes, what are the challenges that our community will face as we continue to grow?
The challenges we face is we have to refocus on who we serve. In my view, we serve the people who live here and the people who will live here after us. And we shouldn't be, that should be our first focus. And we haven't done that because we've been distracted by shiny objects.
I believe our biggest obstacle is not to leave parts of our city behind. We've had imbalance. We've had poor communication. When you see citizens packing this room, packing the waiting area, and when you have to bring in chairs for multiple council meetings, you made a communication goof, you fix it, and you don't have it happen again. From 72nd to 149th, north to south, east to west, we've got to balance that.
Okay. This next question will start with you, Mr. Seymour. Seems like there's a lot of focus on retail growth and development. What support has been given, if any, to primary companies, including business and professional services or manufacturing?
I think there's been a lot of money given away, possibly thrown away to the local small business businesses. There are some grants available that I know some of the people in our Chamber of Commerce have taken advantage of. But as far as help to large retailers, it's in the millions.
Thank you.
Repeat the question one more time.
Seems like there's a lot of focus on retail growth and development. What, if any, support has been given to primary companies such as business, professional services, manufacturing?
Okay. The best support we can give to our primary companies is the same support we give to our citizens. To have a safe city that's, you want to live there, that's easy to get around in, because I think that draws people much more than does dollar inducements. Dollar inducements draws someone who will come for a couple of years and then sell out and leave because they have no commitment to the city.
Thank you.
Development of primary jobs has happened a lot over the last 3 years. Digital Globe, Data Finance, Ball Corporation. Those are just 3 examples of over 2,000 new jobs that have been brought to the city of Westminster over the last 3 years. We've done what we can to entice businesses to locate corporate headquarters, to expand their businesses. And just a couple of weeks ago, Trimble Corporation broke ground on a new office building for another 500 primary jobs.
Thank you. This question starts with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can city council or mayors do anything about gang problems at Westminster High?
Westminster High School?
I believe so.
Okay. We have a school resource officer there if it's something that's illegal going on, but we also pick up a lot of intelligence from that officer being on site and hearing what's going on, from concerns of bullying to drug paraphernalia. Those are the things that are there. But really, what goes on inside that building and on the school grounds is primarily the responsibility of the school district, and we have no authority over the school districts.
Thank you.
And gangs are a function of the society we live in. So, I mean, you can't really point too much of a finger at the schools or the city or the parents or anything else like that. It's a much larger problem than just a city or school response.
Thank you.
Many gangs, even at the high school level, are there to create havoc and to also earn money by selling drugs. I think that's where communications comes in critically between our resource officers, our school districts, and our drug task force, our Metro North Drug Task Force, because gang activity in the high schools is promoted by adults, not by kids. So we have to have all the agencies coordinate for that.
Are there any decisions that you see taken in City Council this last year that you would like to overturn?
We only have 30 seconds. I will pick a key one, and it keeps coming back to communication issues. It's right plans, wrong execution. This happens in business too. Right plans, wrong execution. The Gregory Hill water tanks should have been communicated much earlier to the residents there, and the leaders of the Hill should have been brought in to discuss that process with it. That's a key one for me.
Thank you.
Generally in our world, we don't get many redos, and well, I mean, the decisions council has made, mostly those are contracts, and when you sign a contract, you are stuck. if you want a list of the ones I voted no on, I think it's part of the public record.
Thank you.
I don't think I'd overturn a decision we made. Now, communication is one thing, but you're asking about a decision that the council made. All decisions are made with a lot of thought, a lot of discussion. And when we take a position on them, I think you're there. You don't have to support them. You don't have to disagree with them. But once you've made the decision, you should go forward and move on.
We're going to go ahead and move on to our closing statements. Each of you will have a minute and 30 seconds to review your candidacy, what makes you the one for the mayoral seat, and why you think you are the best one for this position for our city and our community and our businesses. And we'll start with you, Mr.
Okay.
Addison.
Well, this year was the 37th year that I've served the city. I've been very fortunate to serve on boards and commissions, serve as a city council member, and then serve as a mayor. But one of the things that I found most interesting is that we keep coming back to whether or not you're dedicated to what you're doing. This is a city of about 115,000 people, and the mayor's job is not part-time. You don't show up a couple of nights a week, come in a couple of hours during the week. The engagement that we have done here as a city, and I mean we because it takes the entire city, the city staff, and all to make things happen. We've engaged in trying to bring back the city's standing in a metro-wide area, and I think we've done an excellent job of that. Westminster today is seen as one of the leaders in the community, and not only here in Westminster, but in the entire metro area. One of the things I'd like to continue to do is make that happen. But there's a number of projects we've mentioned in our discussions tonight. The B line, the Westminster Center, the TOD station, the redevelopment of the promenade area. We have the Orchard Town Center, and we have Walnut Creek. All of those have got major reinvestments going on in them today. And I'd like to see that finished. But first and foremost, I'd like to make sure that we have a history that we can count on and look back on. But also the future of the city is very dependent upon the decisions that we make and have made over the last couple of years.
Being the mayor has to be recognized, first of all, as that it's not an authoritarian mayor. He is one, or she is one, of 7 people, and the council makes the choices. But if we don't have true discussion, and if we don't have the courage to say the hardest 3 words in the English language, I was wrong, we're not going to find a new direction. We're not going to find a new way to go. Sometimes I think we've been too full of ourselves and too proud, and pride comes before a fall. And we need to return to our first duty, which is to serve the people who live here and the people who live here after us. It's not to win awards. I mean, that's nice, but that's not our first duty. It's not to be a land developer. That's nice, but that's not our first duty. Our job is the people who live here and a level playing field for the businesses who join us. Thanks.
Thank you.
It is time for a new perspective. We have seen the same perspective from this similar event 4 years ago, and the discussions were the same. What are we going to do at the old mall site? It was an overwhelming discussion of that candidate forum, and we are still here today in a situation where we have pictures and not buildings. It's time for a new perspective. It's time for a new personality. The mayor's job is not a full-time position. It is part of a group of 7 people that should work towards consensus, that they should build a relationship with each other first so that they can then take on the hard problems, not just for votes. What you say and how you say it matters. How you treat people and how you interact with people matters. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to each one of you for this morning's questions that were directed. I know you had no idea what you were expecting. You did fantastic giving your own perspective on it. At this moment, we're going to go ahead and take a brief 5-minute break. If any of you need to step out of the room, you can. I believe all the mayoral candidates should be around for a few minutes if you needed to visit with them. Thank you. Well, welcome back, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with our council candidates that are here with us. This morning, we have candidate Mark Clark, candidate Dave Dumont, candidate Jackson Dreeling, candidate Emma Pinter, candidate Katherine Scully, and candidate Lindsay, I can't see your last name, Lindsay, Smith. Thank you so much. And since I failed to know your last name immediately, this is why we do introductions. We're going to go ahead and get started with the introduction of 1 minute each of you that are running. So we'll start with Lindsay, if you can introduce who you are and why you're running, and then we'll continue through.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming today and listening to council. That's what I'm hoping for. But my name is Lindsay Smith, and I grew up in Westminster and did my K through 12 schooling here, and grew up with parents as small business owners. And I went to Colorado State University, got my bachelor's and my master's in communication, moved back to Westminster after I graduated with my master's and bought a home here in 2014. I wanted to stay where the community was great. There's a great quality of living here, and I can't believe that I'm able to still live in the city where I was raised, and I would love to give back by being your council member for the next 4 years.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for coming out and listening to all of us today. I'm Katherine Scully, and I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and I'm an educator. And most importantly, I'm a longtime resident of Westminster. I moved here when I was working at Rocky Flats 25 years ago with my husband, my new husband at the time, and we fell in love with this city. It's an amazing place to live and to raise your family. And so we decided to make this our home for the rest of our lives. And so we have raised our children here through Jeffco Public Schools, and we are excited to be part of the community. We hope to come make the most impact at the city level and be a part of that now.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Emma Pinter. I am running for re-election to Westminster City Council. I'm really proud of the work we've done on Westminster City Council, but I know that we can do more. I'm really proud that we opened our first train station during my time on council, but we need to continue to work with RTD to finish the line up US 36. I'm also proud that we were able to finally reach 15% permanent open space in our city, but we need to continue to work to make sure that we have high quality open space, parks and trails, and bicycle connectivity throughout our city. I'm glad we've started construction at the downtown, but we need to continue our focus to make sure that we are working with locally owned businesses and having a mixture of housing prices at our downtown project. And I just want to say a word. I just want to say that I'm thankful for the Westminster Chamber real quick. I was stumbling over my notes for hosting this forum and a chance to get to know our candidates, and particularly Juliette and Brian for doing all they do to put this on.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. And my name is Jackson Dreeling, and I have been in Westminster since 2009. I am a husband to an amazing small business owner, a father to 2 little boys, and a lifelong Coloradan. Really, I am running for city council to represent and to serve you and your interests. I've been a servant leader my entire life, worked my entire career in the nonprofit sector. I'm heavily involved with Adams 12 School District. I'm on the Public Policy Commission for Interfaith Alliance, and just a community advocate and volunteer. And so I would be honored to represent and to serve you on City Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Dave Dumont, running for Westminster City Council, and I'm pleased to be here this morning. Thank you to the Chamber and for all of you for joining us. I'm running to see that we continue to have a great city that I grew up in. I'm a native here. I volunteer a lot with the police and the fire departments. Over the last 4 years, I've really got to learn to see how our city works. I think we can do a better job at managing our tax dollars to avoid high increases in our water, to make sure that we're funding the things that the local government is responsible for, such as our police and fire departments, our infrastructure, making sure that we're communicating those things well to our citizens to make sure that, government is doing what government is supposed to do, staying in its lane and taking care of the things that you expect it to take care of.
Thank you. Mark?
Hi, I'm Mark Clark. I'm running for Westminster City Council. Born and raised in Westminster, grew up in 71st and Bryant. It was a small town back then, and just want to start out with that and saying I woke up this morning to a great Westminster fall day. We're truly blessed to live in a great city. I'm a business owner of 30 years, an engineering firm, and also I was on the president of the Rotary, Westminster 710 Club. I was a scoutmaster for Troop 212, and my philosophy is, leave it better than you found it. I was also an elected official for Adams 12 5-star schools, Board of Education, and I was responsible for a $500 million budget. Went from a 60% graduation rate to an 85% graduation rate. With one of the 6th largest school districts, I've been proven to show I have good leadership and want to continue to serve my community and my citizens. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This first question, we'll go ahead and get started with you, Mr. Clark. Are there any decisions that the City Council took last year that you would like to overturn?
Well, it's easy to play Monday armchair quarterback. There's a lot of things that goes on in a council meeting that we're not always privy to. I think that with the knowledge they have and what they try to do, they try to make the best decision. But there are things that I would like to challenge, but within 30 seconds, I know I'm not going to get it all done. But overall, I think the city does a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I do think that there was one thing that I think that I would have done differently. I would not have went after taking over the trash service. That's a responsibility of citizens and individuals to decide what services they want to buy and who they buy it from. I question how much money that we spent on going after that, and what could we have spent that money on? We likely could have spent that on another police officer, maybe 2 police officers, but that is not the role of government, is to tell me or you what service to buy.
Thank you.
I will continue on the single hard trash issue, and I actually disagreed with the council turning that down. I think it would have done a number of things that would have been good for our city, creating safer neighborhoods without having trash trucks driving up and down our streets where our kids are playing, and it would save the wear and tear on our roads as well. The benefits of it, long-term sustainability in terms of increasing our recycling, option to compost, and I think overall, just figuring out how we can be a model city.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. I think for me, candidly, what I'm looking forward to is our future. And I'm more focused on where we're going and what we need to finish. While we have started a lot of projects in the city, one of the priorities I hear a lot about from our residents is affordable housing. And are we making sure that the people who work in our city can afford to live in our city? And I am focused on what we can do to build a stronger, more inclusive Westminster for tomorrow.
Thank you.
I think that's an outstanding question as well. And I will say that I am very impressed with our city council, honestly. I think they do put a lot of thought into the decisions they make. And I do think they're open to listening to the community. However, I disagree sometimes with the way they communicate the information. And I disagree with sometimes the way they outreach to the community. I would look for better communication and better outreach.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question as well. I know that being at the table and being at meetings, as Mark had said, that there's information that we're not privy to as far as residents. But I have a communication background, and I would like to provide that to our residents on communication outreach and making sure that our residents know about trash issues and affordable housing. And thank you.
Lindsay, we're going to go ahead and get started with you on this next question. What are your thoughts regarding capping growth in Westminster? How do you plan to develop and pay for the required infrastructure for a growing population?
Thank you. So part of my platform is growth, development, and transportation, and I don't necessarily believe in capping growth. I think the market will tell us how to respond as a city. We need to make sure that we're listening. If I were to be on council, make sure that we're listening to our residents to make sure that we are providing the best services for our residents to have it within our city.
Thank you.
So I do not believe in capping growth. I believe that growth it's inevitable. It's not something that we can necessarily stop. But I do believe that we need to take time. We need to look at our city, plan it out, think about it, measure it twice, and cut it once. That is my message. So, former seamstress. And so also I believe in outreach. Go to the community, ask them their thoughts. Maybe we can negotiate, maybe we can think about it twice.
Yes, I would agree. I think that capping growth is a really bad plan, honestly. Instead, what we need to focus on is smart growth. One of the things the city does well is a traffic study before we approve any kind of development. We also do outreach to our schools to make sure that our schools have the capacity to work with any plan changes. We have a comprehensive land use plan, and we need to make sure that the public remains involved in making those decisions, as well as working with our regional partners like RTD and our school districts.
The question in my mind is not whether or not we should grow, but how we should grow and how we accommodate that growth. We need to continue to build our tax base, incentivizing small business growth, and promoting building that addresses needs in our community so that we can pay for infrastructure investments down the line and make sure that they're built right, built on time, built on budget, and built sustainably. And so I think there's a balance definitely with growth, and that's what I want to make sure that I always bring to the table.
Thank you.
I'm not in favor of capping growth. However, we do have a comprehensive land use plan, and that plan was put out so that we can manage our growth as we are nearing build out. It's important that we, manage to that because there is only so much space that we have in the city, and we do need to communicate with the residents who already live here and make sure that that growth meets their vision, not the city council's vision, because this is your city, not our city. I mean, I live here, but I'm running for this job to represent you.
Thank you.
The city does have a master plan, and we need to stick with that plan. Also, we need to look at the small businesses. We have to look at South Westminster, the orchards, the new downtown. We also have to help these small businesses with their business, not giving all our money and tax credits to the big businesses. There are small business owners that are struggling out there, and we need to take care of them. We need to take care of all our city. So we need to stick to the plan. I'm pro growth.
Thank you. This next question will start with you, Mark.
Okay.
The traffic on Sims has increased greatly over the last few years. For residents whose property backs up to Sims, this has become a quality of life issue. What can be done to divert large truck traffic onto 108th and away from residents?
I think we got to talk to planning and zoning and see what impacts business when they do come in. What kind of traffic is there? What traffic patterns can we modify or alter? We got to make sure that those residences are not disturbed by late night traffic or businesses that are constantly not a good partner with their neighbors. They should be able to work that out. And it's 3 seconds is killing me.
Thank you for the question. I do live in that neighborhood, and I've heard the concerns of the citizens there. Part of the issue there, one, is the FedEx facility that has been put there. Those FedEx trucks, there's a lot of them, and they cause a lot of traffic there. The other issue that we have to deal with when we're looking at those roads is they're not all owned by Westminster. Some of it's unincorporated Jeffco, some of it's Broomfield. So we need to look to see where we can find consensus with both those businesses as well as the other municipalities in the county to see if we can solve that issue.
Yeah, that neighborhood backing up to open space, I think, has a great quality of life, and the residents there should definitely be respected in their concerns. I would be open to looking at restricting commercial traffic along that route, but also just really making sure that the citizens' will is done in that area.
You know, we have a lot of roads like this that partner or pair up to other municipalities. I think another problem area is what happens at 112th in Westminster, which turns into Maine and Broomfield. And when we have partner municipalities, it's our job to relate with them. Give me a call. My number is 720-239-2053. That's my cell phone. I'd like to connect you with our traffic engineer and make sure that we are doing all we can to monitor the traffic flow and reach out to partners.
I love this question because it shows the thoughtfulness of the residents who live here and that they're willing to come forward and speak to their city government. Everybody has the right to live in an area that they're comfortable and feel safe in, and so I would want to encourage a study out there, make sure we look at the road, make sure that the best practices are being done, and then I would encourage the city to take action where it needs to ensure that the residents remain in an area they are safe and comfortable in.
And my idea is building partnerships with municipalities and with our commercial areas. And so with FedEx in that area, I would work with FedEx to see if maybe they could restrict their driving hours to certain timeframes of the day, and work with other municipalities in order to develop that partnership and communication.
Lindsay, we're going to go ahead and start with you on this next question. Water storage seems to be quite full, and yet the rates seem high. How will water be prioritized as we grow?
It's definitely what keeps our city going. It's a service that we provide to our city, and we need to make sure that we are providing the best. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that we have deep communication with our residents, each of our neighbors, and move forward from there.
So water is a basic need, and we all have to have it, so we need to protect it. It needs to be our utmost concern. We need to sit down, look at how much we have and how it's going to be our resource in the future as well. Protect it at all costs, because if we don't have water, we don't have a place to live.
This is another area of pride. The City of Westminster for decades has done an amazing job with water management. We do have aging infrastructure, particularly in the older parts of our city, and that combined with the extreme cost of construction these days has really put pressure on our public works team to make sure that they have a quality plan and to keep water rate increases low and at a moderate level. This is something that we really encourage them to do, to keep those increases low and to keep them steady.
Water is life, and it's something that we should prioritize above many other things, and making sure that as we repair our aging infrastructure and reinvesting in it, that it's done absolutely the right way so that we can keep the water safe to drink and making sure that all residents continue to enjoy it at a high level.
I would say, obviously, water is important. We all need it. The thing that I would point out differently is we had a 7-point-something% increase in water this year and next year. We had a tax surplus in those years as well in our general budget. So if we had money that was extra, why did that not go there first instead of spending it on new spending? At my home, I have to pay my mortgage first. I don't get to go do that fun stuff first. So we need to make sure that we're managing our tax dollars so that we can keep those increases low and take care of that infrastructure.
Former city council people back in the day were very intelligent to make sure we have great water and great water systems. Problem is we talk about we want this place to grow, but our tap fees increase in cost, but we have surplus of money. We need to work with these developers and work with tap fees so we can ensure that these small businesses, these little coffee shops that are spending tens and thousands of dollars so they can pour a cup of coffee for you, we need to be a better steward of businesses.
Mark, we'll get started with you on this next question. If elected, do you commit to serving out your full term?
Yes, I do. I've served 8 years on the school board for Adams 12, and there was an opening for the Westminster City Council spot, and people asked me to run, and I said no. I gave my promise to the kids of that community that I will stay and make sure that they are educated and have the best education in Colorado, if not the United States.
Absolutely. I am one person who ran in the 15 election and came very close to winning. They often tell you not to talk about losing an election. To me, this shows that, you know, I'm persistently pursuing serving this community. It's very, very important to me. I hope to serve 1 term. I hope to serve 2 terms as your city council person. This is my home. It always has been my home, and I'm very dedicated to serving it.
My answer to the question is yes, absolutely. This is true public service at its finest in my mind, and I love public service, and that's what's always drawn me to run for this position. And it's something that you can't quit your day job for, so you better be all in, and if you're going to jump in, you need to finish it.
I love serving in local government, and one of the reasons that I am running for re-election is I want to make sure that what our city has been working on for so many years, that work continues.
I am absolutely committed to serving out my entire term, as well as running again for re-election if elected. I'm loyal, I'm committed, and I believe that the most impact one can make is on their own community at the city level. So this is where I want to be. I've lived here for 25 years, and I am not going anywhere.
And my answer is absolutely. I'm not like a true millennial. I've been employed for 7 years at RTD and hoping to gain more time at RTD. And so that just shows that I am committed to staying in one place and serving the best to my ability and being your voice for the next 4 years.
Lindsay, we'll start with you on this next question. How do you feel about moving the city towards a single hauler trash model, pay as you throw?
I do not agree with it. I think that the residents have spoken at City Council, and I myself in agreement with our residents, and I do not agree with a single trash hauler.
So my message is that I want to listen to the residents and I want to carry their voice forward. And the residents have already spoken and said they did not want a single trash hauler. But I will tell you on a personal level, I agree with single trash. It's important. It saves our environment. It saves our infrastructure. It helps us to recycle, and it helps us to save our landfills.
So having been on council, I ultimately didn't vote to move forward a single trash hauler plan for this city. But I want our residents to know that this city has been committed to environmental stewardship for a long time. We were the first platinum solar city in the state of Colorado. We have a tremendous open space program, and we need to continue our commitment to come up with ways to protect our residents, protect our environment, and help each other.
Yes, I spoke on this earlier, and the reason being is that I know that the council sessions were packed with opposition earlier this year, but I've spoken to many residents who wanted to see it go the other way. And just because they weren't at council meetings doesn't mean their voice shouldn't be heard. And so really, to me, it's about how can we still accomplish some of those goals to protect our environment and really our best asset in Colorado, which is our open space and public lands.
Again, if you are a student of history like I am, you would know this issue came before this council, and it was shot down because the citizens didn't want it. But leaders lead. So if you care about sustainability and being a good steward of the earth that God gave you, go out and do it. I have solar on my home. I recycle. I choose to do those things. You can choose to do what you think is right without the government telling you to do so.
The council works for you. You don't work for us. Your voice needs to be heard. It's not government to tell you how you should recycle or take your trash. Again, I also have solar and I recycle, but that's my choice. This is America. You have a choice to choose what you want to do. And if you want to have a voice and want to be heard, you need to have the right council people up here so they will listen to you, the citizens, not our pet peeves.
Mark, we'll start with you. Do you support Westminster as a sanctuary city?
We have federal laws on immigration, and I feel that we need to follow those laws. We need to follow those and also protect and support our police department as they are out there trying to help our city maintain safety and security. So I personally say we go by what the federal law is. We're a nation of laws, and we have people that made those laws a long time ago. We need to make sure we follow those.
I support the rule of law, and so no, I do not support sanctuary cities. I think that we need to uphold all laws, whether they be local, state, or federal. If you do not like the laws, then you should work to change the laws, but we need to work within the laws that are on the books.
So principal to my campaign is my central value of respecting the dignity of every human being. And to that end, I do support Westminster becoming a sanctuary city. And the reason being is because whereas the federal government has the ability to filter down their resources, we do not have the ability to filter up our resources. Our local law enforcement has better things to do than to be helping ICE out with this issue. We have a lot of work to do in building relationships with people in our community.
So I'm the child of an immigrant. My dad came to this country when he was 9, not just as an immigrant, but as a refugee. And he came with one bag. Each member of their family was able to pack one bag. This is how our country was built. We worked with our police chief here on Westminster City Council to build a statement to follow the law, but to respect the humans that live in our city and make sure that we were only working on local issues.
One of the things that I love about Westminster is that we're a welcoming and inclusive community. We've been leaders in this. We have created inclusivity committee. We have worked as a community to be inviting and welcoming. We've built this country on immigrants, and we need to continue to invite people and welcome people into our country. Protect our most vulnerable. Remember, rising tides lift all boats. Stand up for what you believe in, and sometimes that means that we have to take a stand.
I agree with having to take a stand, but I do believe that we have federal laws and we need to be upholding those laws.
We have time for one more question, so we'll start with you, Lindsay, on this. How can the city increase the economic equity of the people of color so the city stays diverse? How can the city increase the economic equity of people of color so the city stays diverse?
I think we're a diversity as it is. We have everyone here, all different colors, all different races, all different backgrounds. And I think that the services that we provide as a city will help continue that diversity from within and have residents be living here and have that quality of life. But I think that we're already diverse in itself in what we serve.
I agree there is diversity here, but I think there could be more. And I think we could do more to help the more vulnerable residents that live in Westminster. So I would want to see us bring businesses that are going to ensure that they're going to hire people of color and they're going to help them receive their education, and also create an environment so that they have easy access to their jobs. They don't have to figure out how they're going to get there, so walk or some sort of public transportation.
As a city, we need to build a community where everyone who lives here feels safe here. If you are facing a community where you don't feel safe, it is really hard to make sure that you are keeping your job, moving about that community freely. We need to do more as a city to build a welcoming community so that everyone who lives here feels safe here. I've personally witnessed at our community meetings people of color be attacked, and it cannot continue.
So I think one of the most important things that we can do is to really look at parts of our city that have been marginalized and to reinvest in those parts of the city. Looking at some of our codes and regulations and parts of our code, and see if they're putting an undue burden on small businesses that could start up in parts of those cities. I think that we need to work with companies that are using great hiring practices and paying decent wages, and we as a city can do more in hiring people of color and from marginalized communities.
I've been a resident of this city most of my life, and I see many longtime residents here. I don't remember a time where I don't feel that this city was a welcoming place. I don't remember a time it not being diverse, from elementary school to junior high to high school and beyond in jobs. So yeah, we should make sure that we as people, go after people who treat other people wrongly. But I think this is a good community that, for the most part, we're open. People of any race or color can come here, work, live, and have a good life.
All our parents were legal immigrants to this country. And in the Constitution, it says we're all equal. And that's how we should be treated. We shouldn't see the world between black, white. It should be we, the people of the United States of America. We are here because our parents needed to get away from tyranny to make a better place for our kids. So everybody should take care of each other and be good stewards of our community.
We're going to go ahead and get started with you, Mark. At this point, you all have 1 minute to provide your closing statement and further your candidacy. Explain to us maybe why you're the best suited for this role and seeking office.
I went through the Westminster Police Academy. I was also appointed to the Code Task Force. I started getting involved in the city of Westminster. It was tough to make a change from a school board where you have to take care of kids and then you're looking at a city. Everybody talks about strong schools. We need to be a good partner with them. But I really made a commitment to get to know what Westminster's about all employee groups. Embrace our future, respect for our past. Some on council and a couple candidates want to tell you their vision of what Westminster should be. I ask you to tell me what your vision of Westminster should be. Thank you so very much. Thank you for this opportunity. God bless you. God bless Westminster, and God bless the United States of America.
I got into this community type service a little different than most people. I got into it when a little girl was taken and abducted and murdered from my neighborhood. It was at that point that I said, I can't sit on my couch when I have 4 kids and watch the world go the way it's going. I'm gonna need to, get up and do something. I want my kids to know this is what it takes if you want the world to be a good place, the good place that I grew up in. And I want to see the city continue to be that place. So that is why I'm running. We may not always agree on every issue. However, I will always advocate for all of us and make sure that your voices are heard, that it's your vision being carried out, and that the people who sit on this dais represent your voice, not our voice. So I humbly ask for your vote, Dave Dumont, for Westminster City Council. You'll find me on line 3 of your ballot, and I will be a real voice for we the people of Westminster.
Yeah, thank you again to everybody for being here. I think what you've seen from me today is, whether popular or not, I will answer questions truthfully, and I will be real with you. Another thing that I will do is I will always reach out. I will always be out there listening to your voice, and we won't agree on every issue. And other counselors and I won't agree on every issue. But I've had human experience and a varied human experience coming up in a family of small business owners to going through the public housing system, being on Medicaid. I can relate to a wide variety of people. And I have a great background in athletics, and to me that's about teamwork, working across city, special district, county lines to make sure that your voice and your responsibilities are done, no matter who gets the credit. To me, that's really public service, and that is what I'm committed to for you, and that is what I'll always be committed to. Thank you.
Thank you again to the Westminster Chamber for hosting this event. It's really important for voters to have the opportunity to get to know us, a little bit about our families, and more importantly, why we're serving. I want to tell you a little bit about my family. I was raised by a single mom who was a librarian, And she really instilled in me this spirit of community service that stayed with me. And when I was in college, I got involved and joined activities and big groups on campus. And then unexpectedly, between my junior and my senior year, my mother died. And it fell to me to find a home for myself and make sure my sister finished high school and college. That spirit of community service stays with me today. It inspires me to serve on Westminster City Council, and it inspires me to run for re-election. I hope I'll have your support this November.
Thank you so much for hosting us today. This was a great opportunity to get our views out. What I'm going to bring to the City Council is a lot of energy and a lot of friendliness and outreach. I love talking to people and hearing their concerns and their voices. And again, we may not agree on every issue, but I promise you that your voice will shine through when I talk, and when I hear what you're saying, I will communicate your voice. I'm a good listener. I'm a good communicator. I'm a good partner. I love to make partnerships with people and talk to them and negotiate things so that they work for all of us. I want to bring the best and the brightest to Westminster. I want to help the most vulnerable. I promise you I will show up. I want to work for you.
I've worked for RTD for nearly 7 years, and I know that that's a big issue for us up north. I live up north as well, and I've seen firsthand, I've been to a lot of board meetings, I've seen firsthand how policies can affect constituents, and I know how council can affect constituents as well. So I would like to be at the table. I will be your voice for the next 4 years if you do elect me, and I will listen to residents and have community meetings and hear your voice. And I also volunteer for CASA, which is a voice for those who are the most vulnerable in our community. And I just want you to know that I do have a great passion for volunteering in our community, and would love to have that opportunity to serve you.
Thank you again to each of our candidates, and thank you all for joining us this morning. This concludes our first forum. Our ballots will be mailed out on October the 16th, and we encourage you to come to our second forum this Saturday, October the 14th at 10:30 to noon at Covenant Village. We did not get to all of our questions, so these questions will be carried over to that forum. Be sure to get out and vote on November the 7th. Again, on behalf of the Westminster Chamber of Commerce and the City of Westminster, thank you for coming out this morning.